Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today is Thomas Nolen. Thomas Nolen, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit, where are you at right now?
I'm in historic Appomattox, Virginia, and if you know your history, you know this is where Lee surrendered to Grant. This is where the Civil War ended.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Thomas, tell us about what you do in Virginia? Wife, kids, that kind of stuff too.
All right. So I grew up in a real estate household. My parents, my dad got in the business back in 77. I was born in 75. So I do not remember a time period that the phone wasn't ringing and leads weren't coming in. My mom got into the business shortly thereafter, and she was an entrepreneur in her own right, and kind of grew up with two sisters in that household. And then my dad did not push us to get into real estate. So we went out on our own and did our things. And two of us came back and got into real estate. And I met my wife in college. We got married and moved back here, and we've got two kids now. We got one getting ready to graduate from high school, and then we've got one that's a freshman in high school. So
wow,
that new season.
That's awesome. Are things getting back to normal there in Virginia?
Well, I think so. The small town is a little bit different mentality than the urban, and I think you probably would agree with me. The more population, the more fear can drive things, and when you're in a small town, also people are more apt to not change. So
yeah, right.
when people are telling them to put masks on, they're like, no.
Yeah.
So, we did go through a time period though where most everywhere was wearing masks and businesses were shut down, but it wasn't as big of a magnitude as it was in more of the urban areas.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of funny because here in Florida on the West Coast, you'd think you were in a different country than on the East Coast. For some reason on the East Coast, everybody is wearing a mask and things. And on the West Coast, it's a lot more relaxed. And if you go down into Old Naples, then they're a little bit more I don't want to say mask crazy, but they're a little bit more serious about, hey, you better wear a mask. You got to have a mask on. So I'm glad we're kind of getting past that. But there's something that's happening here, and man, I don't know if I think it's happening all over the country. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is this real estate market. How's the real estate market up there?
Oh, it's like it is everywhere else. It's low inventory, high demand, people doing things that you've never seen them do. In the small town, it's not as big of peaks and valleys as in the more urban areas, but we're still seeing a whole lot of what everybody else is seeing around the country.
So what do you tell people? I mean, you've been in the real estate business a long time. You've had the ups and downs in the past. We all know what happened in leading up to 2008 and 9 and all of that. What do you tell somebody, like, what do you do in a market like this?
Man, what a question.
Not to put you on the spot, Thomas, or anything.
That's a great question. I like it. I think, I've got a couple of younger bucks here working at the office with me, and I love getting the younger insight, to see their vision, because I think guys like us that have been in the game for a while, we're experienced, and people tell us we have wisdom. And you know what I think of wisdom? Wisdom is basically, I've screwed up enough that I've realized I'm not going to do that again. That's wisdom, yeah. Right? Like a lot of people think it's just being intelligent. It's not, but I think that you got to be really careful with that wisdom or that experience as far as holding you back as well, because it can keep you from, oh, well, I put myself out there on that ledge earlier and I got hammered, but maybe it's the right time to put yourself back out on the ledge, right? So it's, you got to balance, both of those things for sure. And so, having the youngsters here in the office drives me to be more innovative. And so in 23 years of being in the business, I've been through, depends on what your definition of a recession is, I guess you could say 3, but to me, it's really only been one big one. We had a short one after 9/11. We had, what you would call or some people are calling a recession last year. We didn't see that in real estate, really. So I've been through a lot of different markets. And of course, like I told you before, when I was 7 years old, I was scraping and painting signs for my parents, so I grew up in it. Um, I think probably the advice would be to learn as much as possible from those that come before you in different markets, and
Hmm.
pay attention to what is going on as far as cycles, pay attention to the people that you are mentoring you, and also that you feel like have a pulse on things, and take them out to lunch and learn as much as you can from that. And then at the end of the day, you still got to make your own decisions on your own finances.
Yeah. I like what you said, because sometimes I remember when I was brand new in business, and I was in Denver in the 80s, and the real estate market was going straight up crazy. I was getting established in business, and I thought, man, going at this rate, I'm never going to be able to afford the house I want or the real estate portfolio that I want. And just like everything else, it went up and then it went down. And when it went down, I was in position to take advantage of those opportunities. And, I would tell young people, be patient and just know that there's cycles, like you said, and that there are going to be opportunities, and there's times to buy and there's times to sell, and there's times to hold the hold steady. And I think right now, like down here in Southwest Florida, like in Naples, we're getting a 4 seasons. So everything around this 4 seasons. Now we're gonna have a 4 seasons, 2 Ritz, and La Playa, which I like better than all the other ones just mentioned. And it's only going to make our prices are just going silly. And I mean, there's a person here that's scraping a 36 or 38 million dollar house and building a $120 million house. Now, these are just numbers that the audience, and I mean, I'm sure you and me, Thomas, I mean, those are hard numbers to even grasp, that somebody has so much money that they can just scrape a $36 million house. And I was wondering maybe if he could move it for me, and I would just take it off his hands. It might be cheaper to move it than him to scrape it. We'll put it somewhere. I promise I can find some land somewhere to put that thing on. But you know, I think that everybody gets in this position, and when we're in markets like this, it almost can be discouraging if you're not in the market, right? And I think, like you said, the young guys in your office, you just gotta be patient.
It's really tough to be patient, and I'll tell you why. And you know this, because there's always somebody else doing something that that's making money, right? It's so, if you're trying to be patient and they're over there doing, and it's really easy to be ADD, with it,
Mhm.
and to wonder, oh crap, it's hard to stay the course, right? It's hard, if you put a good plan together, when stuff like this crazy 38 million or whatever it was to 120, I mean, when that's going on, you're going, am I missing opportunity? It's easy to just question yourself. And you had brought up earlier the knowing when to hold something. I call that the Kenny Rogers mentality.
Yeah,
You got to have the Kenny Rogers mentality if you're serious about your portfolio or your investment. You gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, right?
that's right.
And you can't be afraid of missing the boat. I think that's the there's the you guys talk about the abundance mindset, right? And if you're thinking about missing the boat, you're not in an abundance mindset, because there's 50 million boats. You're sitting there looking at the one boat that's leaving you. But
Yeah.
there's a pile of other boats over here. One of them's got your name on it.
And I think that's a great lesson too, is where in any market, in a down market, in an up market, it's really figuring out where are the opportunities, and where are the opportunities and how do they scale for you, right?
Right.
And but you can't let pessimistic people and noise get in your head. because I mean, I think that's what's happened to this country for the last year is, all of these, if you watch the news in the morning, I mean, I'm not sure how people made it through the day with an optimistic view, but I always know whatever I hear on the TV is I discount most of it. The only show I watch consistently, and right now I'm having a hard time because some of their guest hosts, is Jeopardy. And now we have a great guest host, but we've gone through some. For the first time in my life, I've boycotted Jeopardy 2 weeks at a time, depending on the guest host. But and I'm not gonna. This isn't a political show, so I'm not gonna say who I was protesting. But you know, I Jeopardy isn't supposed to be political, and so you never get into those things, and it's just it's good family fun to sit down and watch Jeopardy and try to see how many questions you can get right. But when I think of just being positive, you like I love where you followed your parents lead into this business. And if your dad was a doctor and or your mom was a doctor, that's cool too. But I think the thing that I love about real estate is everybody needs a place to live, right? And one of the most exciting times of our lives is when we move into a new home or we decorate that home, or like my wife says, the HGTV moment of like just walking in and saying, wow, we get to live here, right? And so talk about like, so you've been through 2 or 3 of these things. Your parents, though, starting in the 70s, they've been through maybe a couple more, right? I mean, what did you learn from your parents about that staying power?
Well, my dad, who was sort of the guru, he was the only appraiser in the area also. So we get a lot of leads from him because he would go out and appraise properties a lot of times for estates and stuff. And he was the only appraiser in like a 3 or 4 county area. So he was a connector, and he knew everybody. And so having a mentor like that was just amazing. Mom was a great salesperson for a number of years and retired as a MIMAL, and dad stayed in the business for a while and mentored us. And, I'll never forget from '05 to about '07, the whole time, we worked together, which is just a blessing in itself to be able to work with your dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least in he's been gone now 10 years, and I'm just so blown away that I got to do that. He would come in every day. I mean, and I'm talking about every single day for that 2-year period. He would say the same thing. He would say, son, you better be watching your money and doing what you need to do with it, because it's all coming slamming down soon. I mean, and it wasn't this negativity to it. It was this, just a reminder, hey, this is the first time you've been through this cycle. You're 20 some years old, and you're building houses and you're flipping houses. And, I was doing about every single thing I could possibly do with real estate at the time, all the while newly married, having babies, just nonstop, 80 hours a week, and had a lot of money coming in. And I just remember him saying, when the spigot is turned off, it is turned off, and it's going to be crickets. And I just couldn't imagine that, because back then we still had landline telephones in the office, and the phones were ringing off the hook, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that wisdom, I mean, in '08, I'm telling you, just like that, the phone stopped ringing. I remember the day. I mean, I remember the day, and I remember this eerie feeling and the hair on my neck standing up and going, Dad's right about, I mean, I was like, wow, he's right. Like, like you gotta, your dad's right, but it isn't until it happens when you're like, oh, Dad really was right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that I'm just thinking, if I'm in your shoes and I'm in real estate, I'm doing all this stuff, and then the market changes overnight, just like you said, just like immediately, and the spigot turns off, and maybe I lose money. Was there a time where you thought maybe I should be doing something else? I mean, or how did you have the staying power or the right mindset to keep going?
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, all of that happened, and I had a lot of money tied up in investments. I had 15 rentals at the time. I was building up my rentals, all single family homes. And dad had, I grew up with my dad and mom having some rentals. They had a few commercial rentals and a couple small things, but my goal was to build up that portfolio in a really fast and advantageous manner. My problem was I love land too much. And
Right.
so at the same time that I was buying rentals that were cash flowing, I was buying land that was not cash flowing,
Yeah.
and just to have it because I like hunting and having hundreds of acres and just having the idea. My thought process is, well, I want to have 1,000 acres, right?
Right.
But I didn't take the same business mindset to the land as I did to the rentals, and I should have. And
Mm.
so then when the spigot turned off and my main source of income dried up, then the rentals were taking care of themselves. But I had $2.2 million of active debt. And I'm talking about debt that was not being paid for other than by my projects or my income. And when you're in real estate and multiple different sources of income are coming just from real estate, right? I wasn't in any other type of businesses. And when that spigot turned off, it turned off for the spec homes, it turned off for the sales, it turned off for everything. So then I got about $90,000 in reserves, and that was it. And probably should have had 250, but at least I had some. And I had multiple time periods in a short time period where really great people gave me advice, and I didn't take it.
Mm.
And I didn't take it. And you know why I didn't take it?
Hmm.
Now I am 30. I am 33 at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of my goals was to be a millionaire before I was 30. And I was a millionaire when I was 21. I mean, when I was 29, and then I was worth over 2 million, almost 2.5 million by the time I was 32. So here I am, 33 years old, arrogant, just, think my crap doesn't stink. I've been pulling in hundreds of thousands of dollars in a small town area where the median income is 30 some $1,000.
Yeah.
And man, humble pie. And I had several of my dad's best friends that were mentors tell me what I should do with the money, to weather the storm. And I didn't do it. And then all of a sudden that 90,000 was gone in 30 or 3 or 4 months. And I could have done some other things with it, that would have been a lot better for me and my family during that time period. So yeah, it was a big storm that brewed and came, for sure.
It's funny how we look back and people give us advice, and later on in the show, I'll ask you what the best advice you ever heard or that anybody ever gave you was. But we hear the advice and sometimes we ignore it. And normally, like you said, it's from ego. And my wife always reminds me that ego is edging God out, right? And
Yep.
so we think that it's all us and that we're super talented and that we're making all the right decisions and everything else, and we get cocky, or we can, right? We got to stay humble and realize that we have to make smart decisions and not think that we can outsmart everything. And right now I think that I've got some friends that have tried to do that with cryptocurrency, like, hey, I can outsmart this, and it's kind of come back to haunt them a couple of times. So I wonder, Thomas, if your dad was on the show right now, what would he be saying about the market? Any idea?
The same thing he said back in 05 and 07.
I thought that's what you were going to say. I
He
thought
would be
that's what you were
saying,
going to say.
yeah, he would be saying, invest in what you know,
Yeah.
you know, be confident about your decisions, have a certain amount of reserves back just in case,
Yep.
and keep rolling your money over in what you know. But when it happened, the one thing he did say was so dead on was, he gave us a blueprint of the recession. He said, recession is going to last 5 to 6 years. The third year is when you should buy.
Right.
Wait until the third year. And the third year is when not necessarily everything bottoms out, but everybody's out of denial by then. The first year and a half to 2 years, everybody's still in denial and, still trying to get too much for something when it's all gone down and everything. But by the third year, either they've lost stuff and there's foreclosures and, there's a massive amount of opportunities right in the third year. So he gave us this plan for the real estate brokerage, because by then he had retired, and we weathered the storm with the brokerage, didn't lose the office. I didn't lose my home. I didn't lose, by the grace of God, did not lose a thing. Didn't lose my credit, didn't have a foreclosure, didn't, to this day, I still, I'm gifted at leverage. So, and that can be good and bad. But during those time periods, it was a good thing because I was able to kind of leverage my credit better and move some things around. But I think probably one of the things he would say is, what I said earlier, but the other would be that this is when you build cross-generational wealth during the
Yeah.
recessions. That's, you build wealth during the good times, yes. But if you really want to build something that is sustainable, that is going to last a long time, that is cross-generational, then you really do it in the downtime. And I told Nick, your partner, a couple of years ago, when me and him first met, I said, and we were, you have meetings with people in your life, right? And some of those meetings are just top 10 meetings of your life, right? Like you can go back to the first meetings with certain people and you remember that conversation, you remember exactly where you were, you remember the smell of the place, everything. With Nick, it was at a bar in Richmond at an event we were at, one of those events where, you're getting better, you're learning.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there and we met for the first time and we're talking and he said, well, what is your strategy? And I said, well, my strategy is to be ready for the next recession. And that was like 3 or 4 years ago. And that's been the top, strategy for me and everything underneath. And I'm, positioning myself to do that right now. But a lot of it is advice from my dad, like what we just talked about,
Yeah. Well, it sounds like your dad gave you a lot of great advice. Is there one thing that stands out where you say, man, I'll tell you what, that advice made all the difference in the world?
Whew, man, I could probably come up with 10 of those. I would say probably, I mean, it's simple, but it's simple, but it's so profound. I was always a talker and a communicator, and in sales, the best thing you can be, I think a lot of people go, well, everybody wants me to get in sales because I'm so good at talking with people. And the first thing I tell them is what my dad would say, which I bet you would know, which is in order to be good in sales, you don't need to be a good talker. You need to be a good listener.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really good advice for relationships, period. And it's not just like listening to, it's listening to the in-between stuff. Not what somebody says they want, but hearing what they actually need in their voice or what their mindset is at the current time and fitting that, connection point together with whatever, that you're getting out of that conversation, which they may not actually be telling you,
Right.
And so if you're listening the right way, it can be a profound moment.
It's funny because Rabbi Daniel Lapin, he talks a lot about, and everybody's heard this before, is, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, but balance is in the ears, right? Is we balance, and like when people have inner ear infections and they lose their balance, it's because God put the balance, our ability to balance, in our ears and gave us 2 ears to listen. And you're so right. By the way, I was having dinner a couple of weekends ago with somebody who had been married like 40 some years. And one of the people that we were having dinner with, she was single, and she asked them, what's the key to being married 40 years and being happily married for 40 years. And one is, compromise and communication, but it was, that listening to the other person. Right. And I would tell you that I've been married since 2006. And I could tell you the first 5 years, I don't think I understood that as well as I understand it now. So my wife's on the road right now, driving from South Dakota. Our 22-year-old is moving to Orlando, so they're bringing all her stuff. And this morning, she's telling me about just, they're halfway through and it's just a pain and everything else. And I'm a problem solver. So I could have like, okay, set yourself up a massage when you get back, do this. And I just listened because that's what she needed at that time. And what she was saying is, I'm tired and I don't want to ever make this drive again. So I think that's really cool. You know, one of the things that I love about your story of getting into real estate and how it's been a blessing for you and your family is that you learn from your dad. Now, if somebody doesn't have a parent that's in the business, in like you talked about the young guys, so kind of what your dad did for you, you're doing for these young guys in your business, and you're giving them advice and leadership and mentorship to help them. And you know, Tony Robbins always says, if you want something, find somebody who's got it and find out what they did, right? And then do it a little bit better. I always tell the younger guys that work with me is, you know, take the best from me, leave the rest, and do it better than I did it, or I am doing it. And you know, but one of the things when we think about how to learn, we really have to read, right? And I know you're a Buffini fan, and I love you know, I probably shouldn't plug somebody else's podcast during my podcast, but Brian Buffini's podcast is excellent. And if you were a realtor and you wanted some coaching, I don't think that there's a better place to go. But he has some great guests, and he's so good at interviewing them. And you know, they're professional guests. He gets everybody, you know, big time. And what I love about listening to him is always the books that he's reading, and he interviews a lot of authors that are coming out with, you know, New York Times best-selling books.
Right.
You know, Thomas, I know you've read a lot of those books, and you're probably like me, is every time I listen to the author on there, I'm either downloading the Audible book or ordering the book on Amazon. What are 1, 2, or 3 books for you that have made all the difference? And what would your dad, and I'm going to throw you a curveball on this one. What was your dad's favorite book, if you know?
I do know what his favorite book was. His favorite book was Truman.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
he was a historian.
Yeah.
Now, aside from the Bible, he read the Bible every day.
Yeah.
Okay. He read that every day. He read it he read the 1 year Bible 14 times.
Whoa.
Now, right. Because I have the dates inside the Bible, I have it, which is amazing to me.
That is amazing.
But he wasn't one of those that went around bragging about it. You know what I mean? It was just what can I learn each time through, right? But
Yeah.
Truman was his favorite. He was a history buff, and he felt like that book was just an amazing book about like so many things that were happening during our world during that time, and all, you know, all that went with it. So it's funny you brought that up, because I downloaded that, and it's a massive book. It's huge. You know, you know, when he was reading it and I was in my 20s, I was like, I'll never read. Like, you know, I wasn't reading then, and I was like, that's ridiculous. You know, now I downloaded it on Audible, and I'm gonna start reading it soon. But right now I'm reading I just finished 7 Men, which is a phenomenal book. I don't know if you've read that.
I haven't.
Eric Metaxas. It's an amazing book. And I just finished that right now. And I just finished Bomber Mafia. Have you read that one?
No, you got me 2 books that I haven't read. So
that is Malcolm Gladwell, who I know you've heard of.
Malcolm that's awesome. You know, I just read a book that Buffini had the author on, and now I'm drawing a blank on the author, but I'm sure.
Start with who? Is it?
No, it was The Art of Impossible.
No, it was The Power of Who. Okay, The Art of Impossible. Okay, I haven't read that.
Yeah, it was very good. And I love. Honestly, it's kind of helped me with my golf game, because he talks about flow, being in that zone and being confident.
Oh, Chicks in the High's book, Flo? Does he bring that up?
Yeah. Okay. And so that was a great book too. So, you know, I think that when we're in these times and we don't really know what's going to happen next, and, you know, it's such an important thing to guard your mindset. And the way that you do that is by good input. And just like you said, your dad reading the Bible every day. You know, I haven't done it 14 times. I've done it once, and I failed a couple of times trying to get through it. But I got to share a Nelson Nash story that I probably have shared on this show before, but it's worth sharing again. So one time I talked to Nelson and I said, Nelson, and this is right before he passed away, actually. And so it was in March. And I said, Nelson, I'm reading the Bible cover to cover, and I'm in the Old Testament. And, Nelson, I'm struggling with the Old Testament. I can't, I lose my train of thought. I'm like, this many, just going through all this stuff. And I said, he said, and I'm going to butcher this. So for all my Southern audience, I apologize, but I got to try to do his accent just a little bit. As he said, Jim, the thing is that you have to understand the problem before you understand the solution. The Old Testament, that's the problem. The New Testament, that's the solution.
I love
and,
that.
And that was just Nelson, right? That was, if you asked him a question, he never gave you a straight answer. He would, say, Jim, what do you know about the Tulsa race riot of 19, and I'm like, what does that have to do with the question I just asked you? But he was always saying, hey, I'm not just going to give you the answer. You got to go find the answer for yourself. And so I always thought that was a great perspective of the Old Testament and the New Testament, because Nelson was all about, like with infinite banking, the problem and then the solution, right? If you don't understand the problem, then the solution doesn't get you that excited. So, Thomas, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing this. And I wish I would have gotten the chance to meet your dad. And I love that you're kind of passing it forward or paying it forward and helping the young guys in your office. And those guys are fortunate to have a leader like you to help and a mentor like you to guide them. And I would tell everyone out there, if it's real estate, if it's infinite banking, you got to find the guide. You really have to find a guide or a coach and somebody to help you kind of go through these times. And when the noise gets in your head, to be able to keep that abundant mindset. And so thank you again. And thank you, audience, for listening. If go to wherever you get this podcast and give us a review. Hopefully it's a good one, and subscribe. And just remember, nothing good happens in the herd. Until next time, I'm your host, Jim Oliver. Thank you for listening.